The road to success can feel like one of those weird dreams where you keep running and reaching out towards something, but it's constantly moving further and further away. At least that's how I felt after years of struggling with money, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling miserable with my lack of progress in life. But then I figured it all out. My financial problems stemmed from my poor mindset. For me, like a lot of people, it all started in school. I was always a good student. I got straight A's, spent countless hours memorizing a bunch of information so that I'd pass that super important exam that's going to decide my fate in life. The paralyzing fear of failing my tests and getting in trouble with my teachers or parents was enough to keep my nose buried in my textbooks, both in the classroom and at home. You know, the hours and hours of homework teachers give you? Yep, I was studying around the clock. But now I understand that I was chained to a desk in school just to learn how to be chained to a desk at work in adulthood. Only when you're grown up, you worry that your mistakes will earn you a ticket to a lecture presented by none other than your boss. So that crippling fear of failing doesn't go anywhere. It's already in you as a kid, and it haunts you in your adult life as well. Basically, school just teaches you to be an obedient worker, not a successful person. But how can that be? Aren't we supposed to go to school for knowledge and self-betterment? More knowledge equals good grades means a college degree, which then gets you a high-paying job, and boom, you're rich and successful! We've been told that our whole lives, and it might be that way in a perfect world, but in reality, that's just not the way it goes down. Let me explain. One of my teachers was the first adult who dared lift that veil a bit for me. He used to say, passing an exam is just returning borrowed knowledge. When he first said that, my 17-year-old brain had no clue what he was talking about. But now I get it. Memorizing things doesn't make you knowledgeable. I mean, think about it. A week or two after a test that was so important to you, do you still remember any of that information? Nope, you don't. Because you learned it long enough to pass a test and get a good grade, and that's it. Grades in school teach us one thing. You must strive for the status of success. You don't even have to know what success really is. You need to get good grades, not knowledge. There's a big difference between being truly successful and having something that people just associate with prosperity. Here's a personal example. After I graduated from college, I was lucky enough to get a job. The first thing I did with my first paycheck was to buy a brand new smartphone. I spent almost all my money on that thing. My student loan payment could wait till next month, right? Did I get a job and earn money? Yeah. Did I act like a successful person? 1,000 times no. And that happened to a lot of people around me. Someone hit the jackpot in life, got tons of money, but that didn't make this person more prosperous. The money just came and went. And that's because money is associated with success. But real success is about sustaining your wealth. That's exactly what they don't teach at schools about money. The end goal of your education is to make you a good employee. We learn how to count, sure, but not in the context we need it as adults. I don't know about you, but I've never had 84 apples that I need to divide among so many friends. But I do need to file my taxes, pay off my debts, set up a 401k, and maybe learn how to open a business. But no, they don't teach you that stuff. Only about two trains heading towards each other. Another thing about money is that we all think it's about getting paid. And again, that's just what we learn in school. Only when you're a kid, it's grades, not a paycheck. You work hard and you get rewarded with a good grade. You make mistakes or don't study hard enough and you get punished with a bad grade. You fail. Oh, that's the scariest word when you're a student. Well, can I retake the test? What about extra credit? Please, 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 I can't fail this class. And of course, failure is the biggest thing you avoid as an adult because it's been cemented into your brain. But guess what? Failure is a good thing. Yeah, you heard me right. Again, personal experience here. Because I'd always thought that failure is bad and scary, I couldn't make myself think of overcoming it and dealing with obstacles that caused me to fail. When I was short on money and wanted something, I thought to myself, I can't afford it. When I met with some problem, I'd immediately think, I can't do it. I'd make up excuses that I don't have the time, energy, know-how, you name it. And this is that poor mindset that I mentioned earlier. When you make these sorts of statements, you're putting a period on your thinking process. And that's exactly what you shouldn't be doing. Try, fail, and immediately start thinking of ways to get better. But we're naturally afraid to take risks. That's just how our minds work. It's better to accept defeat than waste more of our precious resources on a problem that we once failed to solve. That's why you have to reprogram your brain and get it out of this poor mindset. Try to remember that your thoughts are what define you as a person. The moment you say, "I don't have enough money, time, or skills," you become what you're talking about. Instead of making these finalizing statements that prevent you from taking a risk or further productive thinking, you can always ask yourself a question instead. What can I do to have enough money? How can I save some time for what's important to me now? What do I need to learn to do better next time? Unlike statements that hold you back, questions move you forward. That's what I know for sure now. It may seem like I'm holding some grudge against the educational system, but it's not like that at all because I know another important rule. Do not blame anything or anyone for your shortcomings. Again, that's just negative thinking creeping up into your head. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stuff like, "Well, school didn't teach me anything," or "The system wants you to stay dumb and poor." So if any of my friends or acquaintances say something like that, I just ask them, how is blaming someone else supposed to help you in your own life? And they never can answer me. Yes, schools don't teach you about money, business smarts, and all that jazz. But that doesn't mean you can't learn these things on your own. Yeah, but you need money to take a course. Hey, there's a world of free information out there. So what's stopping you from doing your research? Being mad at abstract things is easy. But taking responsibility to deal with a problem is more effective than just complaining about it. This is just another thing that I've learned. And one last thought I'd like to share with you is the importance of not being greedy. Believe it or not, some of the greediest people I've ever met were actually pretty poor and unsuccessful in life. Greed comes from the same fear of loss and failure that I mentioned earlier. The richest people in the world, they don't work for money. They work for an idea, knowledge, and a desire to create something or become better at it. So, one day, I decided to adopt a positive outlook on things and only do what I love. I cut my budget almost in half and got so involved in work I was passionate about that I truly became successful, even without tons of money, although that actually started to come my way not too long after that. But those are just my thoughts and personal experience. What about you? What do you think the secrets to becoming successful really is? Let's compare ideas down in the comments. If you found this video helpful, then give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and click that subscribe button to stay on the bright side of life.